Welcome back to the Briotix Health Spotlight. Today we're diving deep into Return to Work with Sandra Miller. Sandra is the Senior Manager of Return to Work Services here at Briotix Health and has been working with us for over 6 years, with 20 years of industry experience before that. We talk about how Return to Work works, new technology solutions, and the reasons you want your employees back sooner rather than later. Stick around for the spotlight. Hey, Sandra, thank you so much for joining us today on the Spotlight. I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit about return to work and what that means at Briotix Health. But first, I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you, and those who are listening can get to know more about you as well. So can you tell us how long you've been with Briotix and how'd you get into the position you're in today?
So I've been with Briotix Health for 6 years, and kind of how I got to here is I'm a physical therapist, ergonomist by trade. Started my career really doing return to work, doing functional capacity evaluations, fitness for duty, work hardening, work conditioning. And that kind of led to when job analysis came about through the American Disabilities Act, and then started doing a bunch of job analysis for employers, then went to work for an employer for 20 years and really helped them with their return to work product line, and really remolded that program for them so that they were able to get people back to work that were on restrictions. Prior to that, they really didn't accept anybody back to work with restrictions. So kind of changed that up because we needed the workforce. And then retired from there and went back to my passion of really helping multiple employers and came to work with Briotix Health.
So like a lot of the folks at Briotix, you've seen the whole pipeline of employee health from the provider perspective all the way up to the people who are designing the programs the way we do it here at Briotix. So from your perspective, why do employees and employers need that return to work service versus just letting employees recover on their own?
So the recovery process doesn't really change that much as far as, the comorbidities, or some people may have more comorbidities. But, if you have, let's take a knee injury that just had arthroscopic surgery, there's standard guidelines on when they should come back to work and when you can progress them, okay? So we use those guidelines, but what tends to happen is you have some of those comorbidities along with them. They may have diabetes on top of that. Where return to work programs really help is they're really engaging people back into the workforce a lot sooner, because the longer somebody's off of work, it really prohibits them from coming back to work. So research after research after research has shown that. In fact, if somebody's been off of work for a year, the likelihood of them to ever come back to work is slim to none. So the sooner you get somebody engaged in that return to work process, whether it's really light work where they're doing work on a computer, even work where they may be doing work for a nonprofit on a computer, or off-site at a nonprofit doing light work, the better they are to getting back to work, because they're not losing that conditioning value by staying at home and sitting in front of a TV and not doing anything. So they're really conditioning themselves a lot better by getting back to work.
In the return to work testing, when we're talking about a lot in the materials that we put out, we talk about, the objective side of testing, how we're taking these results, using them objectively, and we're using the data. What kind of testing makes up that objective side of a return to work program? So it's not just, someone saying, hey, I think they look like they're good to come back today.
So typically the objective side of it is either using the guidelines on what a person should be able to do, those ODG and MDG guidelines that are standard out there in the field. Doctors will use those quite frequently. But then there's also objective testing if you're unsure, or if the employee is unsure about what they can do. There's things like fitness for duty testing, where you're really just using a very short objective test to see what a person may be able to lift with a clinician there that's making sure that they're safe. They'll teach them, typically in those tests, they'll teach them good body mechanics or things like how to do it the right way, just to get them back to work. But those are the most standard ones for getting somebody back to work, is a fitness for duty test.
Once a return to work program is in place and is made, what does it look like in that process for the employee of return to work? And what does that look like for the employer? I know earlier you mentioned, incorporating nonprofit work as well. Obviously, there are a lot of avenues that return to work can go down. Can you talk to us about those and what the program looks like?
Yeah. So we talked about first that kind of nonprofit placement. That's when an employer really doesn't have any modified duty that they can do. So sometimes we will place people in nonprofit organizations that we work with nonprofits across the US. We know who they are. And so we place them like at a Goodwill industry, and they're doing light work within their restrictions at that nonprofit. All right. There's also nonprofit work that you can do directly at a computer. We have some of our clients that will put them on a computer at their workforce doing this nonprofit work. We set them up in the nonprofit work on the computer so that they're coming into the workforce every day, but they're doing computer work that's sedentary work. All right. Employers that have more modified duty work or transitional work that they have kind of designated. We also have a program called the Gradual Return to Work Program. And then that way our clinicians are writing a plan from start to finish of that plan. Like, let's say they write it for 12 weeks with the goal of at the end of the 12 weeks, they're back to work full duty, and they're gradually increasing them. Typically every 2 weeks, they're having an incremental increase. And they get the physician's approval on it. They get the employer's approval on it. And so there's a lot of communication that goes around that. And then they come back to work and they know exactly what they can do for those 12 weeks. Sometimes too, they may also need a little bit of coaching with that because they're fearful coming back into the workplace. I mean, if let's say I've been off of work for 3 months and I'm coming back into the work environment, I'm kind of, I'm hesitant, I'm scared. I hurt myself potentially on the job, or maybe I had some non-occupational thing happen, and I'm coming back to work for that first day, and I want somebody there with me, kind of helping me. Maybe I'm teaching some more specific ergonomics. It's an industrial job, or we're just going over very specific things so that they do not re-injure themselves. Then a lot of times we may do 1 to 2 visits of coaching with that employee, just so that they feel comfortable, the employer feels comfortable. A lot of employers don't want people back to work with restrictions because they're afraid of re-injury. So that's where that coaching can also come into play.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, taking in that, fear in account of someone who's been there, even the inexperience can, just layer on and increase that risk. How often are programs like these updated? Are new technologies or solutions often being put in place in return to work, or is it really just focused on that kind of standard meat and potato style approach?
So technologies are always out there and about. So first off, of any return to work program, I say this all the time, your job analysis is your foundation. An employer needs to know what's required of their employees to do the work objectively. And that may be a physical demand, a cognitive demand, or it may be an environmental exposure. So there's a lot of technologies that are coming out there and writing really good job analysis. We have one called Job Able, where you're putting all of your job analysis into a bank of all your jobs. And then one of the things that is a new technology that's coming out is having a way where you can put in restrictions into that technology that has all of your job analysis in there. And let's say you want to know somebody who has a 50-pound lift restriction can do, and they meet all the qualifications in your workforce, let's say, of a clerk position. All right. So you'd put in 50 pounds, and I want to search all clerk jobs. And it would pop up to you all the clerk jobs that that employee could do with that restriction. So it helps you to really come up with the jobs that they qualify for and the jobs that they meet to meet the requirements of their restrictions to come back to work.
So it's really about streamlining that process.
Really streamlines it. And, and that's kind of one of the things that you want to look at in that interactive process under the ADA is looking at all jobs that are open. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing. You could only put in the jobs that you have open right now. All right. So it would look at all of those things, and that's part of the new technologies that we're seeing.
Yeah, well, Sandra, that's really fascinating. I think you gave us a great comprehensive look of, that bird's eye view of what return to work is, what it does for the employee, and then some of the, new solutions that are coming along as well. So I'd like to thank you so much for hopping on with us today. It was a real pleasure chatting with you, and I hope the folks who listen have learned a little bit more about return to work.
Thank you, Matt.